I'm going to make this very quick as a video. I'm not going to take too long on this one. Now, despite the fact that I've made a number of videos talking about cleaning up your credit and how to calculate and pay off student loans quicker and how to deal with leasing versus financing and how to decide which one is best. And of course, I made videos talking about um, of course, making your credit score better, getting an 850 like me, or specifically how to shop and buy an investment property. Now, I made these videos, a lot of them, a long time ago. Some of them 4 years, some of them 3 years, and I've made a lot of videos. Like, um, I was talking about housing unavailability 4 months ago, as you can see. I, I did a lot of these videos, but the thing about it is, as I've complained, YouTube seems to only boost people if you're paying them directly for these ads and shit. So then you could be like this guy right here. You could have an ad like Discover, and Discover wants to get your kids into the Discover credit card student loans so that you can be just like Kwame and his Becky right here. And y'all can be just laughing and smiling about how the banks are kicking your ass with interest. So I got Kwame right here and Becky, and they're happy or something. I don't know what they're laughing at, but Kwame's got a big ass smile on his face. Now, see, you know what's funny? And I'll just say this, and yes, there is a racial element to it. Black men do not smile in photos unless they're truly happy. I've noticed that. Whenever you see, look in any black man's wallet and look at his driver's license. He's mean mugging, like angry and shit. So that when the cop pulls the license out, he looks at it. He's like, "Why is this guy like fucking angry?" Or like if you look at most of their pictures, black men do not smile in pictures. But strangely enough, when they've got Becky next to them, or Mei Ling, or Marisol, or Jasmine, or whatever, all of a sudden they smiling and shit. Look at this guy smile. I mean, this dude is smiling so damn hard. You'd have thought that he just made $1 trillion in Bitcoin or something. Look at this guy showing all his teeth and everything, and they're white and everything. Kwame is smiling. I don't know what Becky's talking about. You know who this is? This is Rachel Dolezal right there. I don't know what they smiling about. It looks like they're drinking a soda. It looks like it says dumb. Either that or it says Dunkin' Donuts or D-Link. I don't even know what that shit says. But they look like they're high. And Discover, they're like, oh, yeah, just come here and bring your kids here for student loans and we're going to fuck them over. I had a Discover credit card when I was in college. I ran up about $5,000 of debt on that shit somehow. I was buying stuff like toys and shit from Micro Center. Well, not really Micro Center, but CompUSA. That's who we had back then. And Discover sued my ass, and they closed the card. So what ended up happening was I had a judgment against me, and I had to pay that shit back while I was still in college. And I was like, okay, fuck this, never again. I'm never, ever going to fuck up with credit again. That shit drove my credit score down to like a 530. So Discover could kiss my ass. I would never go to them for anything. You never go to a private loaner for anything. It's better to just go to the government. I mean, hey, if they're going to hand all their welfare to these women, they might as well hand you some for your loans, whatever it's going to be. But you don't go to the private guys for nothing. Because if you do, you're going to regret it, and none of that stuff gets discharged. Okay, I've digressed a little bit too much. So I just wanted to say, when I got home, this letter was waiting for me right here. I put this in my community chat. Do you know how it feels every single day I come home? There's a fucking letter in my mailbox asking me to sell my house. And I want you to look at the instructions or look at the details. Sell your house for cash as is. They don't even want you to think for a second that you have to make improvements. They don't give a fuck about your improvements. What they want is they want to buy the property. So anyway, this property, as you can see, is the one that I've been renting out to my Hofstra students. And I went and got the mail, and when I saw this, I was thinking about Zillow and all these companies that are buying these houses sight unseen. And now I have a house inside New York City, but in order, and I'll just say it like this because I don't care who's listening, ATF, I don't give a fuck because there's nothing you can do. I've got licenses. But anyway, if you live in New York City, you can't really own guns easily. I bought a house in Long Island so I'd be able to own guns, and I'd be able to keep them where I want to keep them. So whenever I feel like going to the range, I can just go there. Then I bought another house in Long Island, and the reality is housing was the smartest thing I could have gone into, because the thing about it is when you have real estate, these houses, to tell you the truth, these are not expensive houses that I own. These houses, if I were to really put a real value on them and not inflate it, I would say both of these houses should be definitely less than $200,000. I ended up paying less than $300,000. Now, mind you, I have, and I'll get to this later, but I have a female coworker just bought herself a house, and then I had another female coworker who just bought herself a house a couple of years ago, and they bought these big, lavish houses that were like $500,000 and $600,000. Now, the second coworker, she bought her house after the market had started going up because she bought her house during COVID. Now, the first coworker, she bought her house before I bought the second house that I bought. So she didn't get hit by all of this crazy madness where you got these businesses and conglomerates and everything buying up houses. But I just want you to understand, this is what it looks like if you live in New York. Are the rooms and the kids once occupied, or are they now mostly empty? Does the yard see less play and now it leads a lot of work? Is the mortgage that was once easy to afford now harder to afford? Well, let me actually say this. The mortgages right now, especially if you refinance, are easier than ever to afford because the interest rates are so low that you're beating the cost of inflation. As long as you get a mortgage right now under 3%, so if you get like a 2.6, 2.7, something like that, 2.8, you're defeating inflation. And if you were fortunate enough to get a property before the house values went up, and you also got a mortgage under 3%, you basically won. Now, the second mortgage I took out was a 20-year fixed, 20 years. And it was so cheap that I was like, okay, well, you're giving me below a 3%, and it's a 20-year fix. So by the time I'm retired, this second place paid off. And then the beautiful thing about it is when you rent it to college students like I do, I rent to Hofstra students. These kids, if they go to Hofstra, they'd be paying like, what is it? I think they'd be paying like $2,000 or $3,000 per semester, or some. It's some crazy number. I think it comes out to close to $30,000 a year to rent property. But I charge them way less. I charge them like $1,000 something a month, and they pay me. They pay their utilities, and the simple thing is, it all works out. They're happy to rent from me. They got a private house that they can live in. And I don't, I take care of everything. I've shown you videos. I go out and buy them air conditioners. I go out and buy them furniture when they need it. I get them upgrades. And so far, being a landlord works perfectly. But I want you to understand, look at what they're doing. Oh, we'll send a local professional that knows the area to take a look at your home. You'll receive a cash offer for your ads. It's like I'll say this. I have another female friend. She just recently made a bid on a house out of state. I'm not going to tell you where, but she bid on the house. They wanted like $410,000 for this house. She bid $450,000 and then found out that she was outbid. And I was trying to warn you about this. See, I kept trying to tell you, don't let these people sucker you into these high-cost car payments, because what they're going to do is they're going to fuck up your debt-to-income ratio, and they're going to make it so that when you want to get property, you can't. I was saying a while ago, I was like, listen, guys, get property first, then get these luxury cars. Now, in the back of my mind, I already know if you buy a property, chances are that's going to push your money into the property. You're not going to be able to buy luxury cars so you can show off with your stupid GTIs and your boring ass Supras and all that shit. So I said, no. Get property, not cars. Because property is appreciating. Cars are depreciating, especially them shitty Subarus and them boring ass Toyotas and them dull ass stupid Hondas and all that shit. I tried to tell you, I was like, listen, forget that Type R Civic, that piece of garbage. Get yourself property. But nope, some people didn't listen to me. No. I'm going to go to Dodge and I'm going to buy a Hellcat. I want to buy a Hellcat. I want a Dodge Durango Hellcat. I got to get the SRT. It's got to say SRT on it, otherwise it's not cool. I got to get the SRT. I got to get the Hellcat. I got to get got to get me a BMW 3 Series. I got to get the 4 Series, 5 Series. I got to get the X5. I got to get the... So what happened within the last 3 years? House prices skyrocketed. And now you've got these businesses leaving these letters on my house every other fucking day, asking me to buy it, and I'm telling them no. I'm like, you know what I do with these letters? I take them outside and I burn them. I have a grill and I just burn them on the grill. No joke. I just get some lighter fluid and I just toss that on there and I burn them. Now, why am I saying this? It's because there were 2 stories that I saw today that I wanted to share. Business Insider had these 2 stories that I wanted to share. So that's why I figured that was a good segue. Some 36% of U.S. millennials say student loan debt is stopping them from owning homes. Now, first of all, I mentioned this when I was talking about clearing up your student loan debt and improving your credit. Student loan debt jacks up what's called your debt-to-income ratio. Basically, the theory goes, the banks want to see that you are using less than 50% of your monthly income on your housing or on your liabilities before you apply to get property. If you're trying to apply for a house, and I would say the other problem is that because of this liberal feminist culture bullshit that we've got going here in America, it's delaying family planning. And that's really the big issue. See, the problem is, and I'm going to get to that in a minute because I have a second story. The problem is that because liberal feminine, and let me just say it like this, and I hope that you repeat what I'm saying, because what I'm saying is the absolute truth from as many observations as I can make. Kevin Samuels would probably agree with me. And even if you don't like him, I'm pretty sure most of these other manosphere guys would probably agree with me. The problem is liberal feminism is keeping women in school. That's what's happening. When women are kept in school, and now I'm starting to understand why the Taliban and Islam said, nah, fuck that, no school for women. Y'all are staying in this household. You're not doing shit. You're staying in this household. If you try anything else, we're going to stone you. I'm starting to understand the reason why they are doing that. Well, when you keep these women in school, they age, and most of these women, they get so old that at that point, once the men catch up to them, and the men have careers, and the men are earning, the men don't want these old women they age no more. Most of these men don't want them, because not only is it an age factor, but you're also dealing with a mentality. You're dealing with that Beyonce independent woman bullshit. That mentality is what is causing men, and I've talked about this before, it's causing men to abstain from dating, and it's causing men to abstain from marriage. But here's the way this whole system was supposed to work. The way it was supposed to work is men and women were probably supposed to meet at around their late 20s. They were supposed to get married while they were still in their 20s. They were supposed to stay married into their, the rest of their life. But for the most part, they were supposed to buy a house by the time they were 30. And then they would pay on that mortgage, and they would pay it off by the time they're 60, which means that by that time they're retiring. By the time they're retiring, now they've got equity. Now they've got their Social Security about to come in. Keep in mind, because this economy is so fucked up, they've raised the age of Social Security. If you think you're retiring at 60 and getting your Social Security, you can forget it. Because when you go to them, they're going to say, well, if you try to get it now, you're only going to get these pennies. But if you wait 10 years till you're 70, then you'll get these dollars. It's fucked up. And this delayed family planning is what has broken the back of America. It's broken us culturally. And these people are fucking crazy at this point. Like, people are losing their goddamn minds. So my thing is, women don't mind taking out all these student loans. I showed you the stats. 58% of women are the ones who hold the student loans. Men are abstaining. The men are saying, no, I'm not going to college. I don't need the loans, and I didn't do shit in high school, so I'm not going. Men are abstaining from college. Do I have to bring it up? Because if you look in a couple of my videos ago, you'll remember I showed you Daniel from, what was it, New York Times? How poor Daniel, was abstaining from college. He wasn't going to go. Where's that video? It's right here somewhere. It's like, these are a lot of Battlefield videos. If you remember, I did a couple of videos about that. I showed you how China was making moves in order to make it so that they could control their population a little bit better. They were making it so that these kids couldn't play video games all goddamn weekend. They were making them productive, unlike America. And then on top of that, they will also, right here, a generation of American men give up on college. China offers immediate solutions. But before that, I made another video about Daniel here. And this video got a lot of views. I guess there were probably some liberal college professors who decided to watch this video. And while they were watching it, they were like, yo, this guy who's on this video is crazy and he hates liberals. So they didn't want to talk about this video too much. But this guy Daniel, this kid Daniel right here, a generation of American men are giving up on college. Men figured it out quicker because men are logical. It's like that video, that movie that came out in the 80s, War Games. The only way to win is not to play. The only way to win is not to play. Men figured it out. Men said, you know, wait a minute. If I go to school, I'm going to take out all this loan debt and I'm going to end up screwed. If I date certain women, I might get an allegation on me and I'm going to end up screwed. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to play. Now, you can call them an incel, you can call them a dropout, but the reality is you're not a dropout, but you're deep in student loan debt. So the question is, who's the smart one? War Games told us the only way to win is not to play. That's what they told us. And they were right. So anyway, Americans owe about $1.75 trillion in student loans, according to the Federal Reserve. Millennials owe an average of $38,877 in student loan debt. Now, let me explain something to you about this shit right here. A lot of these kids go away to school because they're trying to get away from their parents. They're trying to go away to some party school out of their parents' eyes so that they can drink, smoke, and have unprotected sex on some campus somewhere, right? Here's the problem, though. Those campuses charge money for that tuition, and they charge money for those dorms. So by the time you figure out that you're a dumbass and you're not going to be able to graduate, you've probably already racked up a couple thousand in student loan. And when I say a couple thousand, I'm talking 12, maybe even 20. You might have stayed there a full 1 year, and then you had to drop out. And then you probably maybe said, oh, well, I don't want it to all go to waste, so I'll just go to a community school. So you end up taking out even more loans. Then there are some kids who pick a really easy major, some bullshit like underwater basket weaving. That's the standing joke. Or maybe you want a liberal college degree and PhD and educational studies or something. So we want to study how about education among lesbian communities, PhD. Well, guess what? You're going to take out $60,000 or $70,000 worth of debt for that worthless degree, and you're going to end up having to write books just to try to break even. That's how it works. And if you think I'm lying, just tell me I'm lying, because I got the stats. I'm reading the stats. Can't call me a liar. 36% of U.S. millennials say student loan debt is keeping them from owning homes. That's because your debt-to-income ratio is fucked. Not only can't you buy a house, but you can't buy a car either. Because chances are you're sitting around with $100,000 of student loan debt because you decided to get a political science degree. I know people who've done that. Now, I know a couple who've paid it back, but I know a lot that didn't. More than 1/3 of millennials in the U.S. say they feel locked out of buying a home. They feel like Daniel because of their student loan debts, according to a new survey conducted by Legal & General. The company polled 875 U.S.-based millennials who are not homeowners and found 36 believe student loan debt was a significant. Of course it is. In fact, it should have been like more than 50%. That's the reality. It should have been more than 50%. Americans owe $1.75 trillion in student loan debts, according to data from the Federal Reserve. U.S. student loan debt averaged about $28,400 in 2020, around $38,877 among millennials. I'm a millennial. I was born in 81. Millennials were the first generation to have their backs up against the wall with this unhappy choice between massive debt. You know what? When I was a kid, all of my uncles, including my parents, were telling me, oh yeah, well when we went to school, all you had to do was pay the student fees. And tuition was it was almost free. It was basically free. Yeah, well, it wasn't free I had to pay about $1,600 per semester, which I had deferred by what was called AMS. It was Academic Management Services. Later on, I started taking out loans from Sallie Mae, who changed their name to Navient. So anyway, about 23% of U.S. millennials surveyed by Legal in General felt strongly impacted by student loan debt, while 45% of those surveyed said saving for down payment was their top priority. Are you trying to save for a down payment on a house that's going to run you between $400,000 and $600,000? Well, you're going to be saving a long time, because you need to walk into that loan office, into that bank. You need to walk in there with no less than about $70,000 cash, because the housing prices are jacked up. Why? Because the Federal Reserve has kept interest rates low. In fact, real quick, because I know I keep digressing. Federal Reserve said that they were not going to raise interest rates because they can't. The interest rates are so low only because they can't service the national debt can't be serviced. I keep showing you the debt clock. Federal Reserve leaves interest rates near zero. Guess what happens when the interest rates are low? It means that you're going to borrow more money because credit is cheap. Your dollar is worthless. Your savings are punished because you get nothing from the bank. They don't give you interest. They charge you interest when you use their credit. So the Federal Reserve keeping interest rates low is causing housing values to shoot through the roof. And that's the game, guys. I tried to tell you that's the game. Back to the story. The impact of student loan debt means that those who don't have access to financial help from their families are disadvantaged in accumulating wealth through property ownership. Well, okay, that's pretty much the gist of the story. But let me explain, and I'll say it again. The only way, nobody saved themselves into wealth. Nobody. Because the problem is, while you're saving money, you're chasing the inflation rate. The inflation causes your dollars that you save to be worth less. Nobody saves themselves into riches. So what do people do? They try gambling on cryptocurrency. They try gambling on anything, stocks, bonds, whatever. So the reality is, a house that appreciates in value, or property that appreciates in value, real estate, is usually the best way to accumulate wealth. And it's also the best way to secure wealth in a family. Because if your kids understand that they don't have to pay rent and they don't have to pay a mortgage as long as they can keep up the taxes and the maintenance on a house, having a house that's paid off, $0 on that mortgage, that propels them forward in ways that you couldn't believe. If you leave them cash, they're going to fuck it up. They're going to run out and waste it on Dogecoin, or they're going to run out and spend it on a Lamborghini, or they're going to run out and spend it on a drug habit. Like they're going to, get high and they're going to do drugs because, maybe they might smoke that money up. You never know. It happens all the time. So that was one story right there. Second story. Now this speaks directly to my coworkers and friends. Single women own more homes than men in the 50 biggest metro areas in the country. So we're basically talking about California, New York, Florida, DC, LA, Atlanta, Chicago. Specifically, there's more, but those are the major areas. 65% of single women aren't waiting for marriage to buy homes. Why? Because most of these women ain't nobody trying to marry. Why? Because what I said earlier, these women are wasting so much time in college or grad school that by the time they're finished, they're old. And the guys don't want them no more. Why would I want you when I can go get me a younger woman who doesn't have the mileage? When I buy a car, I buy new cars. I don't buy used cars. Used cars, that's that hoopty shit. I don't do that. I buy new cars. You seen my videos. How many cars have I bought in my videos? I walked right onto the floor and said, I want that car. I don't buy no damn used cars. Fuck that. No. I don't even want the smell of a motherfucker in my car. I don't want it. When I get a car, I get it off the dealer floor, fully loaded. That's how I do it. And guess what? A lot of these men approach marriage the same way. They want brand new car smell, As brand new as possible. Now, unfortunately, when you buy a new car, there's always going to be some miles on it. You could buy a Bugatti and pay $4 million. There's still going to be like 10 miles on it because they had to test that shit to make sure the tires don't fly off when you're doing 300 miles an hour. But the reality is there's always going to be a little bit of mileage, but that's the bottom line. There can't be too much mileage. Now, this chick right here, I don't know what her name is. We're going to call her Mei Lee. Mei Lee must have just purchased her new house right here, and she did it on her own. 65% of single women are not waiting for men to marry them to buy homes. Single women now own more homes than single men in America in the 50 largest metro areas. Declining marriage rates. Gee, I wonder why. Declining marriage rates and interest in having kids. Why aren't you interested in having children? I wonder. Is it because you're older than 35 and you might have a geriatric pregnancy? Is it because you've gotten so old and so lonely that you've grown bitter and you hate children? I don't know. That young people aren't tying real estate to family planning. And that right there is the reason why you're going to stay broke. No matter how much money you save, your money can get burned up by the next generation. Real estate has always been the best way to secure intergenerational wealth. I think more people are understanding that your crypto portfolio ain't shit, and to some extent your stock portfolio goes up and goes down. Now, Grant, I'll say it like this. Your stocks that pay dividends that I've been trying to get people to go into and to look into oil and banks and stuff, stocks that pay dividends, they do appreciate. I think we can all agree on that. Unfortunately, again, that's still money. If you leave money behind, your kids will fuck that up. But what you need is a hedge against inflation. And you simultaneously need something to build intergenerational wealth. That's if you're planning to have children. And guess what? Even if you're not planning on having children, especially if you're a man, sooner or later you will plan on having children. A lot of these women think, oh yeah, well I only need like 2 children, or I don't need any children. Yo, guess what? Eventually they're going to regret it, and that's that. And then they'll be like, oh man, I wish I had more children, but I spent all my life in college getting a PhD in fashion designing. So anyway, about 2 in 3 single women, 65%, reported that they would rather not wait until they were married to buy homes. Because you ain't got no damn choice. Because you spent all your time. In sociology, they call it a career track. Some women choose the mommy track, where they have their children, and then after their children are grown, that's when they go back to school and careers. But then some women choose the career track, which means that they go towards a career and they waste their better childbearing years in a goddamn classroom. That's what happens. If I'm lying, tell me. Tell me I'm lying. Kevin Samuels got a button, he pushed it and says, I'm a PhD. Tell me I'm lying. Go ahead. So anyway, and a growing number of millennials and Generation Z adults say they don't plan to have children, which is mostly bullshit. Sooner or later, they're going to want them. But the thing that scares me is that, as somebody who grew up as a millennial in the 80s, it feels to me that not only has liberal feminism and this economy and this welfare state, not only has it basically ruined the social structure of this country, but on top of that, they've basically turned marriage and families into an elitist institution. You have to spend a lot of money to get married and to have a marriage and a wedding. You have to also spend a lot of money on children. But what I will say is that everybody who I know who's been married and stayed married, they have a lot of wealth accumulated in their families, as long as they don't get divorced. The second they get divorced, it's all fucked. But what I'm saying is, I've noticed married couples tend to be way more stable, and they also tend to have more wealth between them, especially if they're not stupid and fuck up their money and their credit. But in any event, single women are also quietly dominating the housing market, with more single women owning homes. The reality is, most men, a lot, especially these younger guys, these guys don't want to buy a house because they're lazy. They don't want to do any work. They'll stay in an apartment, and they'll stay in that apartment, and they'll pay on that apartment, and they'll play their PlayStation 5, and they won't do shit. They don't know how to mow the lawn. They don't do anything. Like, they don't know how to trim the hedges. They want to stay in a place where it's all taken care of for them, and all they have to do is just work and pay the rent. That's all they want. Not to mention these dudes who are living in their mama's basement. That's a whole nother beast right there. But anyway, 80% of single women are actively excited about the prospect of owning a home themselves. Oh, yeah? Well, here's my question, single. All the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies, all the single ladies. I have a question for you. Who are you going to call when it comes time to, I don't know, take the air conditioning box and put it in the window? Who are you going to call when it comes time to take that 200-pound air conditioner or that 150-pound air conditioner and take it out of the window because it's getting cold outside? Who are you going to call to do all that? Who are you going to call when your furnace stops working? Who are you going to call? Do you know how many times I've gotten calls from single female friends and coworkers because their furnace fucking stopped working and they needed to light it back up and they had no idea how to do it? Do you know how many calls I've gotten from my female coworkers and friends who their internet goes out and they have no idea how to turn the shit back on? Have you any idea how many times I've gotten calls because, in fact, one of them, this chick I was smashing, her father was on vacation and he was coming back and she asked me to help him mow the lawn so that it would look nice when he got back. I'm like, well, okay, yeah, sure, I'll come over and I'll help you mow the lawn. But I'm like, is there anybody else that could do this? It's like, but she didn't have brothers. She didn't have any male brothers, basically. So basically, a woman asking you to do all that stuff, that's basically like saying, yeah, I got some sex, here it is. Because, the reality with men is men don't want to be paid money. Men want to be paid in sex. They'll never say that, but men, for the most part, as long as it's a small job, if it's something real simple, like just fixing your Wi-Fi or something, the men they're not really interested in a woman's money. They're not, that's just the reality. I'm sorry. Men make enough money and they save their money and they don't spend their money and waste it. So for the most part, real men aren't interested in women's money. Now, I'm not talking about you Pookies and Ray Rays that are always up on these women and your mom trying to get money from her or borrow her car or borrow her Nissan Altima so you can drive it around because you can't afford your own car. I'm not talking about the Pookies and Ray Rays. I'm talking about real men with real money. That's what I'm talking about. So anyway, that doesn't mean that single women pursuing homeowners don't want to get married. Their views on the relationship between home buying and marriage are simply shifting. Yeah, of course, because liberal feminism, and because, anyway, 87% of respondents to the survey said that it was an outdated idea that someone must be married to buy a home. Okay, ladies. Well, all the single ladies, when you go out there and buy your house and you get ripped off in that bank and they sell you into something where shit is literally falling apart, where, my female coworker, she got a house, the whole basement needed to be redone. She had a dude come in, redo her basement. That guy fucked up the work because, after all, who was she going to complain to? She didn't have a man. Now, when he would argue with her about the work that he was doing, because she ended up firing him. Oh, he'd raise his voice and this, that, and other. But meanwhile, you know what I noticed? She would invite me over to show what he was doing. And then when she had to say something to him, she'd say it in front of me. And then I realized, I was like, wait a minute. She's using me as a fucking bodyguard because she realizes that I got this Desert Eagle. And she's like, yeah, if anything pops off, I have a man handle it. Because these women use men. They use us for fucking bodyguards and shit. It's like when you're at a club. You don't see any females at the door being guards. Hell no. There's always a man at the door as a guard. Because as soon as the guys get drunk and start touching the women's faces, now mind you, I'm saying this because at one point I tried bouncing. I hated it. But anyway, as soon as the guys get drunk and they start putting their hands on the women, they expect you, the big strong guy, to come over and drag this motherfucker, the drunk ass, drag him out of the... But you know what I'm talking about. I can't make this shit up. So anyway, 71% of single women said that if they bought a home while single, they would want to have their future partner move in with them. Yeah, because as a real man making real money, I'm desperate to move in with you. And this is where Kevin Samuels is so important. Because he's trying to say these women are acting like men, and that doesn't work. Men don't want to compete with no damn woman. You think I'm gonna move into your goddamn house so the first time you get angry at me, you can tell me to get the fuck out? Fuck that. My houses have my name on the mortgage, my name on the title, my name on the deed for the land. Nobody else's name's on my shit. I'll be goddamned if somebody will ever tell me to get the fuck out of anything. Ever. Ever. I would never rent in this country. Ever. When I go rent, I rent in other countries because I know in other countries I can't possibly own the land. So when I go to the Philippines and you see these fabulous videos that I make about condos, oh, you best believe I rent. I don't want to own that shit because I can't. As an American, as a foreigner, you can't own it. You can buy the building, but you can't buy the land. But I'll be goddamned if some female is ever going to tell me, oh yeah, well, you can pack your shit and get the fuck out. Like you remember in, what was that movie? Waiting to Exhale. Waiting to Exhale. Car scene. Yes, she found out her man, Angela Bassett, because Angela Bassett is the quintessential black woman for like every single movie ever. So anyway, she found out he's cheating. So she goes into his room, takes his clothes, throws all that shit into bags, angrily, throws it outside, takes it outside. She takes his shit outside, and she's screaming and everything. Oh yeah, well you can just get the fuck out. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So So you're gonna have a woman take my suits and all my stuff and throw it into my Mercedes and drag my Mercedes outside, put my suits and clothes into that shit, and then light that motherfucker on fire? I'll be goddamn if that shit'll ever happen to my ass. Look at that shit. You see this? So wait. So now I get back. I digressed. I'm sorry. I have to digress sometimes. So you're telling me that you think I'm gonna move in with you? Fuck that. I can't say it loud enough. And 71% of single women said that if they bought a home while single, they would want to have their future partner move in with them. Let me tell you something, gentlemen. Let me tell you this. Listen to the sound of my voice. If you move in with a woman, you're a simp. Not only you're the weakest beta male on earth. You are. Just listen to the sound of my voice. If you move in with a woman, I just want you to end up on YouTube when she kicks you the fuck out. Well, when she decides to cheat on you, number one, and you find out about it, and you make the mistake of trying to raise your voice in her house, and then she tells you, well, if you don't like me cheating, you can get the fuck out. I have a polyamorous relationship. That means I can love multiple men. Why are you worried about my body count? I have a polyamorous relationship. When you raise your voice in her house and she packs your shit and tells you to get the fuck out, I just want you to have somebody nearby to record that because I want to be laughing at you on YouTube and sharing that video in my community chat. So anyway, single women aren't planning around spouses. They're planning around their savings. Yeah, because they're saving so much money while they're deep in debt. No. I think you mean that they're planning around their negative net worth. That's what you mean. See, it's a damn shame when they talk about savings. But guess what? If you owe student loans, you ain't got no savings. That savings belongs to Navient. That savings belongs to Sally Mae. But see, these people, when they write this shit, these people don't think like I think. But anyway, despite feeling emotionally ready, many single women still don't feel financially ready to purchase a home of their own because they can't. They can't afford it. Not only that, the bank ain't going to give it to them. Now, if they somehow finagle the bank and they somehow have enough cash down to somehow be able to buy one of these inflated price houses, as soon as they get into that house, I guarantee you within the first year, something's going to break that's really expensive. How are they going to pay for it? Well, they'll probably reach for a credit card. Well, what if their credit card can't afford that? Well, that's when the porno movies come in. That's when they invite the guy in. Oh, well, I can't afford this now, but maybe I could give you something a little more interesting. But anyway, I digress again. I got to stop digressing. I said I wasn't going to make this long. Here I am hitting 40 minutes. But anyway, nearly 3/4 of single women reported that they haven't made a purchase yet because they want to feel financially stable first. Well, maybe the reason why they can't do it is because the bank is straight up telling them no. See, you know what's funny about the way these articles are written? They never put the, see, when you hear me talk, I put the onus right on the person it belongs on. When you hear these Business Insider, they're afraid to say, yeah, well, the bank don't want to give it to you because they know your ass can't afford it. Because they're afraid that some fembot is going to write them up and send them email and talk about how misogynist the person is who's at Insider. So they're not going to say it. I'll say it. They won't. A majority of single women were also concerned about planning for down payments. Yeah, because you can't save cash if you owe the student loan industry money. And improving their credit scores. Well, I have an 850. Why isn't your score an 850? Could it be because you spent all your credit on Revlon? Could it be because you spent all your credit on push-up bras? Could it be that because you spent all your money on Estee Lauder? Could it be because you spent all your money on pump heels from Manolo Blahnik, if I pronounce that right? Could it be that you spent all your money on Coach bags? Could it be that because you spent all your money on Louis Vuitton? Could it be because you spent all your money on your PhD? Could it be because you spent all your money on a lease on a BMW, Mercedes, or Audi? I think you understand where I'm going with this. So anyway, women face extra challenges to meeting those financial concerns. The wage gap, and I'm not going to read, there is no wage gap. There is no wage gap. Show me a male coal miner and a female coal miner who are not getting paid the same thing, and they're working the same number of hours. Show me a difficult, dangerous, or dirty job where the women are getting paid less than the men. I guarantee you can't. And when I say doing the job, I'm not talking about when you're at a construction site and the women are standing there holding the stop sign. I'm talking about when have you ever seen a woman standing there with a jackhammer? Have you ever seen that? No. That's because there's no wage gap. It's a lie. Every time you see wage gap, it's a lie. It's a lie. You know how many times I called out for work within the last 3 years? I think probably not once. And if I were to stretch that number, I'll say tops 2 times, possibly. And I don't even think that even happened. I think it was not a single time in the last 3 years. I want you to think about the women at your job. How often do they call out? As soon as they get a headache? As soon as their stomach hurts? There is no wage gap. You're working less hours, so you're getting paid less money. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. Or you're working a job that's not as demanding and you're getting less money. Or the free market has decided that what you're doing isn't worth the amount of money that you think it's worth. And I'm sorry, that's just what it is. Free market economics, dear. So this is what causes them to spend so much time in these colleges getting these PhD degrees and running up their debt until now they can't get a house because their debt-to-income ratio is a mess. But single women are succeeding in these goals anyway. U.S. Census Bureau data analyzed by the mortgage research firm LendingTree. By the way, those are some scam artists. But anyway, that single women are more likely than single men to own a home in every one of the U.S. 50. Well, listen, there's a lot of women now who are making 6-figure salaries and they don't need no man. Have you taken a look at any of them? Have you talked to any of them? Have you seen them come on Kevin Samuel's show complaining about why they can't get a man? Have you seen them come on these YouTube channels talking about how men ain't shit because somebody pumped and dumped them? Yeah, okay. Younger people aren't planning around spouses and kids because they might not have them. Family roles have changed in the 21st century. 30 years ago, in married hetero... 30 years ago, in married heterosexual households, male partners were still often breadwinners and considered heads of the households. And that's up until the welfare state came along and made it possible to get rid of men like Daniel in that other article. Between 1990 and 2019, however, the number of households headed by single women increased from 17.6 to 22.6, according Between 1990 and 2019, the number of households headed by single women increased from 17.6 to 22.6. You know what's funny? This country is becoming more and more like the Philippines. The Philippines is basically matriarchal because the majority of the households are headed by single women. Not only are they single women, but single mothers. Single mothers. The cycle of poverty perpetuates itself. Why? Because the welfare state knows that if they put the money into the women's hands, the women are going to spend it. The men are not going to simply spend the money. They also know that as long as they keep the welfare state running, that's the only way that they can force these women into even thinking that they can afford to have children. Even right now, we're about to do our taxes. The tax credit is an incentive for you to have children. That's what it is. We're not even doing that anymore. We're not having children. Our numbers are declining. The last census said the only groups in America that were actually positively growing were Hispanics and Asians. You can read the census. It actually said, well, you know what? I like to prove the shit that I say. Okay, census, Hispanics, and Asians. Census shows sharply growing numbers of Hispanic, Asian, and multiracial. Rise in Hispanic and Asian population fuels USA growth. I rest my case. You know, see, the sad thing is you can try to present this information. It doesn't matter how you present it, but the reality is it's there. You can read this shit yourself. Okay, even among married two-income households, the researchers write, it is increasingly common for women to run their homes. God damn. So you know what that means? That even if you're living up in her house, she might tell you to shut up and keep your voice down because you're a simp who doesn't run his house. So anyway, women are owning more homes in general. The home ownership rate among women increased from 50.9 to 61.2 between 1990 and 2019, while the rate among men dropped from 70.6 to 67.1. Let me explain something to you. When I think about women and it comes to how they deal with men and relationships, this is what I always think about. I always think about the alien queen. What is the alien queen? Well, the alien queen is obviously an alpha female, and her only priority is to find a place to create a nest and to start laying eggs so that she can have them face huggers and chest bursters and shit, searching for people and pulling them back into the hive and jumping on their face and busting open their chests. So what am I saying here? Females gravitate towards stability. You can't make a nest if it's unstable. It has to be a stable nest. These guys don't mind living in apartments. These guys don't mind living in bullshit if they can't do better. They don't mind living in one of these apartments for the rest of their life. The women have their kids. Oh, but it's not enough to have their kids. No, they got to keep working. They got to keep that college loan debt coming so that they can make sure that they build a perfect nest in a house. They don't care how much debt they take out. The alien queen, if you gave her a Discover card, she would go buy the biggest nest she could buy. That's the welfare state right there. Yeah, you're probably like, what the hell are you talking about? But that's the reality. These women are focused on stability. They do not respect or trust the men to give them that stability. They just don't. Because as far as they're concerned, they can do better than you. Tyler Perry said, I can do bad all by myself. His movie was called that. So that's what you're up against, guys. This is the mentality you're up against right there. When you understand the alien queen, you understand women. You understand them all. The hive mind. You understand them all. That's why. Have you ever noticed women, they go to the bathroom together, they never go alone, and it's just the bathroom. Y'all don't know what I'm talking about. I'm spitting facts. Y'all don't know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So anyway, and it's not just the restructuring of finances within marriage that's happened. Fewer people are getting married. Gee, I wonder why. And having kids at all. In 2019, about 38% of adults in the U.S. between 25 and 34 weren't married or living with a partner. According to the Pew Research Center, although evidence shows that more people are also choosing to get married later, Yeah, well, a lot of these women want to get married later, but the problem is these guys don't understand their options. And by options, I mean you can go to a foreign country and give you a woman half your age. And all you got to do is have Jeff Bezos give you an Amazon box large enough you can ship her back. Y'all don't know what I'm talking about. Y'all, I'm spitting facts. Y'all don't understand what I'm talking about. You can ship her back here using the K1 visa process, just like on 90 Day Fiancé. 90 Day Fiancé, Nikki and Mark. This is my favorite story. Nikki, let's see. Nikki was, I think she was like 19, and Mark was like 50 something. But you men, y'all need to understand your options. What was it? Weird? I think, creepy? I forget what it was. Yeah, okay, this was it. Nikki and Mark, they called it a creepy couple. And why? Oh, in fact, I don't want to play the video. But why did they say that? Why did they say that? It's because he's 50. Wait. He's 58 and she was 19. And Mark has been happily married for the last 3 years. But you guys don't understand your options. And these women damn sure don't want you to understand your options. So anyway, I think I'm running out of steam about now because I think that's the end. So let's bottle it up. A desire for community connections as well as building equity and stability in part a desire for community connections as well as building equity and stability in part contributed to a surge in millennial home buying during the pandemic. Cummings said, nowhere is this more evident than amongst millennial single women who are prioritizing home ownership as a key milestone. Well, I will say this. Not only is a home the best way you can possibly build your intergenerational wealth, but on top of that, unlike Bitcoin, it's a stock or a commodity that you can actually live in while it appreciates. If you're paying rent, you're getting nothing out of it. At this point, if you're paying more in rent than I'm paying on a mortgage for my tenants, then you're a fool. Now, granted, it's hard to find properties, but you should have bought one like years ago. I don't know what you were doing. So the reality is, this is what you're up against. The women are out buying the men for homes. Mei Ling right here, single woman. She looks like she's probably late 40s, probably going into her 50s. Mei Ling right here is one of the 65% of single women who aren't waiting for marriage to buy houses. And 36% of millennials say student loan debt is stopping them from owning homes. I never imagined when I was a kid that I would literally be watching America collapse. I never imagined it. Now, there were certain signs that I thought to myself, I was like, wait a minute, that can't continue like that. But now you're starting to see the bigger picture and you're starting to see it all fall apart. And this is what it is. So my question to you is, despite all this evidence that I gave you in this 53 minutes, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? What's your goal? Do you have a property? Do you have a house? Are you going to focus now on trying to snap up whatever's left? What is your goal? What is your priority? What are you going to do? Because I'll tell you right now, these women are moving in ways that you aren't even thinking about. And you're busy sitting there with your PlayStation 5, like Daniel, on your parents' bed because you're in your mommy's house, your daddy's house. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? That's the only question I have. So I said this was going to be short. Apparently it wasn't. So that's just that. So you can leave a comment. I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the shares. And I appreciate the likes. But I really want to hear, what are you going to do about this? Are you going to do anything? Are you going to be like her, who's the head of the household, and she's walking in front of this dude, and this dude is constantly looking down at the ground because he realizes that he is a beta and she's the head of the household? Is that what you're going to do? Are you going to let her walk in front of you and be like, yes, excuse me, how much is this house? And she's going to have her hands on her hips, and she's going to be like, how much is this house? I have a Gucci purse, and I have plenty of money and credit. And you're just in the back like, yes, dear. No, dear. Yes, dear. Dear, do you think we can afford this house? Oh, you shut up. I'm the one with all the money. I'm an independent lady. Yes, dear. Okay. Is that what you're going to do? I just need to hear what you're going to. I need to hear your thoughts on all of this information I've deigned to share with you. Yes, dear.